Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast of your favorite team in the Bay Area. On today's part one of today's two-part episode, we're going to be digging into Mike Grier's trades. So we're going to be looking at every trade where there was a roster player transaction. So part of a two-part episode. So all that and more on today's episode of Locked On Sharks.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm your host, JD Young, contributor at San Jose Hockey Now. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. You can follow along or subscribe for free wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch this on YouTube as well. And a little bit of change of plans. I know I was originally going to do trade episode and then draft profile today, but this trade episode turned out to be a monster episode that we're going to split it into two parts. So the first half is going to be kind of the leading up, kind of the offseason leading up to the trade deadline. And then we'll be looking at kind of from the Timo Meier trade on in the second half. So I wanted to make sure I do each trade justice, not give you a 50-minute podcast or not have to try to rush through them all. So we're going to be kind of breaking up into two parts, and then tomorrow we'll have a draft profile, which was a really fun episode I did with Patrick Bexel on Otto Senberg. So before we dive into this part one of this mammoth, I do want to let you know today's episode is brought to you guys by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. And great YouTube episode because there is slides galore, 28 slides across two episodes here. So if you're not watching on YouTube, today's a perfect day to get started watching on YouTube. So way we're going to start this actually, and I know the first trade that he did, Mike Grier did, was the Luke Kunin trade, but I think the most important trade that he did this previous offseason is the Brent Burns trade. So that is where we are going to be starting today, is the Brent Burns trade. So as a recap, Brent Burns was traded. The Carolina Hurricanes acquired Brent Burns and forward Lane Peterson. The Sharks got back forward Steven Lorentz, goalie Eetu Mäkiniemi, and a 2023 third-round pick. That is going to be their pick. There was they could choose between the Flyers and theirs. It's going to be theirs because yes, the Flyers is the better pick. So Sharks did retain 34% at $2.72 million over the 3 years remaining. So that was starting this year. So why we're going to do this is I'm going to kind of look at the players, how they performed this year for the Canes, and then I'll look at the Shark. We'll dig into the Sharks players, and I'll give my kind of grade now that we've got some time to kind of step away from it and learn a little bit more. So Brent Burns in his 82 games with the in the regular season with the Hurricanes. Of course, he played all 82 games. 18 goals, 43 assists, 61 points, 23-13 time on ice. It's actually his lowest time on ice average since his days playing a forward. So interesting there. They also are a much deeper defensive team, so they don't have to rely on Brent Burns to play ungodly minutes that we saw him play the past couple of years, or the ungodly minutes that we saw Erik Karlsson have to play this year. Lane Peterson played for 4 teams this season, including the Chicago Wolves, the Vancouver Canucks, Abbotsford Canucks, and the Columbus Blue Jackets. So RIP Lane Peterson, noted power play specialist for the Sharks. Brent Burns has been a great player for the Hurricanes, and they're well on their way to making a deep playoff run. That is why they got him, is to put them over the edge, hopefully put him over the hump as they make a deep playoff run. So let's look at what the Sharks got back. So Steven Lorentz played 80 games this year for the Sharks, had 10 goals, 9 assists, 111 shots on goal, averaged 1150 time on ice. Corsi for 47.72, goals against 35.48%. His fantasy stats from Evolving Hockey: kind of what you would expect. He was a really solid kind of defensive forward for the Sharks. Really, really great shorthanded. He played 106 minutes shorthanded this year out of his 947 time on ice. But, he played a ton of shorthanded minutes, and he was really, really good at that. But really kind of solidified that fourth line for the Sharks, which has been, the bottom six has been, especially in the center position, has been a revolving door the past couple of years, and really, really found his game the second half of the season, and looks like to be a kind of what we thought Jasper Weatherby was going to be when he burst on the scene last year. But, I expect Lorentz will definitely be back with the Sharks next year. As an RFA, they own his rights. I would expect him. We'll play with the contracts when we get Evolving Hockey is going to put out their contracts at some point around the end of the first round of the playoffs. So good complimentary piece for the Sharks. Eetu Mäkiniemi, the goalie, played with the Barracuda mostly this year. Did get a couple games in the NHL and looked solid in his games in the NHL. Didn't look rattled. Granted, one of them was against the Ducks, but 22 games, had a 900 save percentage, 296 goals against average. Did only allow 60 goals this year for the Barracuda. Kind of was the backup to Aaron Dell for the majority of the season, but was shut down at the end of the season with an injury. So a little worrisome. That's 2 years in a row now where he has not been able to make it through an entire season. I still think Mäkiniemi, though, does have kind of backup quality as in the NHL. And hopefully next year he is your kind of presumptive starter going. I think he's the presumptive starter for the Barracuda going to next year, pending on health. So if he can remain healthy, that's going to be the big thing for him. But, you have to be. We've seen this Sharks goalie pipeline has had an infusion of talent. There still isn't that kind of crown jewel player that you're really, really excited about. But Eetu Mäkiniemi looks like at least a useful backup. If not, worst case scenario is he's going to be a good AHL goalies for the Sharks for the next couple of years as they continue to kind of restock their pipeline and see some of their guys work going through. So, overall, I think, looking back right now, you have to give this trade still a B-. I know the cap space they used, from getting off Brent Burns' contract allowed them to get players like, Nico Sturm and Matt Benning and kind of do some other things there. But third round pick is going to be a late third round pick in this upcoming draft. And, this is going to be a good draft class, but still, if that was a second, then you can maybe, I think you'd bump it up a little bit more, but you got to give it a B-. And I think you're going to kind of see a trend with Mike Grier's trades where it kind of feels a little underwhelming so far. And that's going to be kind of learning on the job here and hopefully heading into the potential Erik Karlsson trade, something he can take from it. So before we get into my favorite trade, Luke Kunin, and we'll talk about Adin Hill and Jasper Weatherby, all those fun trades. Let's take a quick break. Talk to you guys about our friends over at FanDuel and Grand Slams, no hitters, double plays are back, and there's no better place to get in on MLB action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. That's because right now new customers can step up to the plate with a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. Place your first bet and get up to $1,000 back on bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. I always like the tungsten arm O'Doul. Ohtani with 10 strikeouts, but the Angels still lose. I don't know why. It's just a dumb bet, but it's really fun because it just feels very angelish. So if you miss your chance to get a no sweat first bet, don't miss your chance to get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel, an official partner of Major League Baseball. All right, as we get back into it, so we're actually going to kind of go back in time now and look at Mike Grier's kind of first player trade, not his first trade. So the draft trades we're going to save for another day because we're going to be talking about the draft more in depth later this week. But Luke Kunin, they traded with the Nashville Predators. The Sharks acquired the signing rights of forward Luke Kunin. The Predators acquired the signing rights of forward John Leonard and a 2024 third-round pick, which is probably going to be right around 68, 69 right now, I believe, is where it's scheduled to be at the moment. So 68 right now. So John Leonard, we'll start with the Preds. Had a solid season in the AHL, 67 games, 17 goals, 27 assists for 44 points for the Milwaukee Admirals, sorry. Did have 1 goal in 6 NHL games as well. Luke Kunin for the Sharks played 31 games, 5 goals, 8 assists, 58 shots on goal, averaged 10:34 time on ice, Corsi for 41:56, goals for 38:71, and unfortunately blew out his knee in December with an ACL. Is expected to be back at the beginning of the training camp for the Sharks. Excuse me, but Luke Kunin, fancy stats. He played kind of middle 6 minutes for the Sharks. Was okay on the power play. Played about 42 minutes on the power play, but played a ton of shorthanded minutes, and his defense was okay. He was a kind of a 19th percentile for a middle 6 forward offensively and 39th percentile defensively. So took more penalties than you would like. Again, my whole thing with Luke Kunin is you traded for a third-round pick for a guy who Nashville really, there was talk that they weren't going to re-sign him anyway. And then he gave him a 2-year, $2.5 million contract. That just kind of feels like bad business. That's just kind of bad process where if you had waited till he gotten out onto out, if you really, really wanted him, you could have grabbed him off the streets type of a thing. Sorry, you gave him a $2.75 million. My bad. So shortchanged Luke Kunin a little bit, but just bad process. There's a bajillion guys like Luke Kunin, right? Would you rather have Luke Kunin or would you rather have Svechnikov, who you paid no money for? So just kind of felt bad process for this one. I gave this one a D. So next, Adin Hill, if you remember, former Shark great, was traded to the Golden Knights when all their goalies died. They got a 2024 4th-round pick out of it. Adin Hill had a bounce-back season for the Knights. In 27 games, he went 16-7-1, 915 save percentage, and a 245 goals against average for the Knights. That kind of, I think, goes to show just how bad the things were for the Sharks this year. His goal saved above expected wasn't spectacular. It was a 0.9. He ranked 20 he in 27 games played this year, but again, much better than what we had seen from him when he played for the Sharks. Just put that in perspective. Goals saved above expected. Adin Hill's negative 4.1. So you gave up 4 more goals and roughly the same amount of games played for the Sharks. So much better team in front of him, of course. But Adin Hill kind of proving he can be a average goaltender, and when you have a really good team in front of him, as Vegas does right now, he doesn't have to do as much work. So, and especially with the craziness that has been the Vegas goaltending, basically, I feel like since the last in a couple of years of Marc-Andre Fleury. So, going to give it a C. I mean, Hill wasn't going to play games for you this year, especially when you had Kaapo Kähkönen you just traded for, and James Reimer had a great season the year before and then regressed like crazy this year for the Sharks. Kind of what you expect. So, but getting a pick back from your rival, and that gives you ammo to go do something else with it if you want, or whatever. For a guy who wasn't going to, you kind of were stuck, right? He wasn't going to clear waivers because someone was going to grab him. So you got something for a guy in Adin Hill. So next, one Jasper Weatherby. So he was traded midseason. This is kind of January-ish for Kyle Criscolo of the Grand Rapid Griffins, which is just an amazing name. But during that time, Weatherby's time in Grand Rapids, he played 31 games, had 3 goals, 8 assists, and 11 points. So definitely struggled in the first half of the season with the Barracuda, and found his game a little bit to end this season with Grand Rapids. But if you're the Sharks, though, looking at what they got in Kyle Criscolo, who played mostly for the Barracuda this year, did have I think he had 1 or 2 games for the Sharks and did score a goal, but 32 games, had 12 goals, 7 assists, 90 shots on goal, and really kind of helped solidify that second line for the Barracuda. With him, they moved Bordelot to the wing, and just kind of you had Agazino and then Criscolo, and then kind of, really helped, I think, the supporting cast around him, right? You saw guys like Daniel Gushin, play better. You started to see guys like kind of Ozzy playing better. Bordelot had a slower second half of the season, but, just kind of helped to solidify a team with a veteran guy who's played a bajillion AHL games. So a little tough to give up on a young guy like Weatherby, but as we'll talk about with the Scott Reedy one on the next episode, it just didn't really fit with the new system. Couldn't really find his groove, was struggling with playing time. And Criscolo, professional guy, knew exactly what you're getting when he came in. So I'm going to give this one actually a B. B, Criscolo, he did his job right and helped the Barracuda make a playoff push. Unfortunately, they didn't make the playoffs, but you'd have to be happy with his production at least. So if you want to re-sign him as an AHL deal or whatever going forward, totally cool. So, all right, before we continue with the Matt Nieto, Ryan Merkley trades, big trades there, and then we talk about Megna as well. Do need to take a quick break, talk to you guys about our friends over at Athletic Greens. Today's episode is brought to you by AG1 by Athletic Greens. The grip of winter is finally being loosened, and you may try to get back into some more healthy and active lifestyle. What better way to pair some new exercise habits and a daily dose of nutritional insurance in the form of AG1? With one delicious scoop of AG1 and a glass of water each day, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, nervous system, immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, aging, all the things. It's also lifestyle friendly. Whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, AG1 contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while still tasting good and supporting better sleep quality, recovery, mental clarity, and alertness. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of their immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right, let's get into the Matt Nieto trade. So Matt Nieto was traded with Ryan Merkley to the Colorado Avalanche. The Sharks acquired in that trade Martin Kaut and defenseman Jaycob McDonald. For the Sharks, or for the Colorado Avalanche, Matt Nieto played 36 games, 4 goals, 5 assists, 9 points during that time. 10:52 time on ice, was edging close to 16 minutes with the Sharks. So just shows Matt Nieto, perfectly cromulent fourth liner on a really, really good team. Colorado knew exactly what they're getting Matt Nieto for. Kill penalties, play on the fourth line, chip in some points here and there. So the big piece, though, kind of the interesting piece was Ryan Merkley, right? In 28 games with the Colorado Eagles, had 2 goals, 6 assists, and 8 points. In the 30 games with the Cuda before the trade, he had 14 assists. So he actually had more points with the Cuda before his trade. So interesting to see there with the development of Ryan Merkley going forward. So the Sharks, of course, got Martin Kaut and Jacob McDonald. McDonald, defenseman / forward, played some forward games, but in 25 games for the Sharks this year, did have a goal and 5 assists, had 46 shots on goal, played 1630 average time on ice. Corsi for 49.51, which is pretty solid, especially on the Sharks team. Goals for 33.33, not as solid. Looking at his fancy stats, 55 percentile defenseman. He played, he's definitely your 6th, 7th defenseman. If you could be doing a lot worse for McDonald. Did a good job though on his defense and kind of shutting down the expected goals. You're not getting anything offensively from him. Played 41 minutes of power play time, which is interesting, especially on when you play. Yeah, just did okay in that, but Jacob McDonald. Martin Kaut, though, Sharks, he played both in the Sharks and with the Barracuda. We're going to focus on his Barracuda numbers because he played more games with Barracuda. 19 games in the Barracuda, had 3 goals, 11 assists, 63 shots on goal. I think he looked good, really kind of helped, big body guy, that the kind of that diversity, right, especially among Cuda players, where you have guys like Bordelot and Robbins and Eklund, having a guy like Martin Kaut around who can just a bigger body who can kind of do things that those guys can't do. And really, I thought he looked good both in his times with the Sharks and with the Barracuda. I feel like this is one of those rare kind of everything worked out for both of them. I'm gonna give this trade a B- though, just because I still you still would have gotten a little bit to have gotten a little bit more for Matt Nieto. Like if it had just been Kaut for Ryan Merkley, you're probably pretty happy with that. That makes a lot of sense. But basically getting McDonald for Matt Nieto feels a little light right there. And you would have I would have rather had like a pick or maybe another prospect type of thing. But so yes, the Matt Nieto trade, B-. All right. Jaycob Megna trade, the final trade of today's episode. So Jaycob Megna was traded to the Kraken for a 2023 4th round pick. There was some slight conditions on it. I think it was it'll either be their own or the Colorado one. It's going to be the Colorado one unless they come back and win the series, but or move really far. Anyway, it'll probably be it'll probably be the Colorado one type of situation. So Jaycob Megna, though, for the Kraken, has played 6 games for them, 1733 time on ice, hasn't scored any points. Was only playing 15-22 with the Sharks, so interesting to see the time on ice go up, but hasn't really produced as many points. Did have 12 points in 48 games with the Sharks, mostly playing with Erik Karlsson. But again, kind of another quality 6th, 7th defenseman for the Kraken. If they get some injuries, just try some insurance for them going into the playoffs type of situation. So this trade, though, again, I think just a B for it, right? You took Jaycob Megna, who really wasn't part of your long-term plans, and you got an asset that you can do something with later on in a 4th round pick this year. Whether you want to pick it, you can package it up, move forwards. Maybe you get a prospect, in return type of thing. Plenty of options for the Sharks going forward with that pick. So, so the first kind of half of it will start with the kind of more the trade deadline trades on the next episode, but just a quick recap. So the Brent Burns trades, I gave a B-. The Luke Kunin trade, a D. The Adin Hill trade, a C. Jasper Weatherby, I gave a B. Ryan Merkley, Matt Nieto, a B-, and Jaycob Megna, a B as well. So some solid trades, kind of a running theme with Mike Grier. You don't really walk away kind of going, yeah, Mike Grier won that trade. And that's probably just going to come with more experience as a GM type of situation. So, and that'll kind of continue when we look at on the next episode, looking at, of course, the Timo Meier trade. So make sure, again, Timo Meier trades will be dropping later on, or if you've already checked, there's 2 episodes in your feed already. So if you watch on YouTube, it'll probably be a couple hour difference between the 2. But yes, so we'll see. Mike Grier, got to work on the trades a little bit, but make sure you're following along, though. You can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Locked On Sharks. You can follow me on Twitter at MyFryHole. Watch on YouTube, listen wherever you get podcasts, and be back later with the second half of this trade. And then Wednesday, we have the Otto Stenberg draft profile. So until later, bye, friends.